It is estimated that there are at least 264 million worldwide minors aged between 5 and 17 employed in labor activities and about 168 working full-time. However, when it comes to illegal employment, the number of exploited children is difficult to estimate. Child labor is not only a problem that regards countries known as the south of the world, where the lower classes pay a higher price for forced industrialization, but it is also a common situation in industrialized countries where marginalization and poverty are continuously increasing. The word work includes many activities inside and outside of the family. For example, children may help the families by working in the field, harvesting, caring for elders and or children. Or they may work outside the house walls by serving rich families, working on the street, in the farms, factories, plantation, mines, and so on. These children may work for many hours to also a whole day, working between 12 to 14 hours a day, because they represent the main source of income for the family. Therefore, this is important to distinguish between child labor and child exploitation, which in some cases may be considered as slavery.
Exploitation is not only linked to the poverty, but also to economic exploitation. In fact, there are countries with low income where child exploitation is almost non-existent, while there are other countries with a growing economy where this problem is instead very widespread. Often the parents of the working children are underemployed or unemployed who are looking for a job in order to maintain a family. Unfortunately, many employers prefer children to adults because they can be underpaid. The exploited children have no time to play or to study, and without a good school or professional education, they will never be qualified workers and they will always be destined to occasional employment. Consequently, poverty generates child exploitation, which on its turn generates poverty. Only 5% of the working children is employed in factories for exportation, while many others do not work in sectors linked to exportation.
The consequences of child labor. The exploitation of child labor has serious consequences on the health and development of children and teenagers and psychological effects that can negatively change their lives. Their vulnerability puts them more at risk for accidents and professional illness than an adult who does the same job. Minors who work may be exposed to harmful products such as pesticides and herbicides in agriculture. The exploited children hardly ever have sufficient knowledge to handle these dangerous substances, not sufficient negotiating power to refuse certain activities. Furthermore, being forced into long hours of repetitive work causes a loss in attention that increases the risk of accidents. The exploitation of child labor can also have long-term consequences. In fact, some jobs force children and young people for a long time to assume unnatural poses or physical efforts not suitable for their young age that interfere with proper physical development. Moreover, girls and boys are subject to physical and psychological abuse. Child labor is a global problem linked to the family's economic histories and to the country where the children live. So, while it is important to immediately eliminate the most serious forms of child labor, it is nevertheless necessary to allow those forms of child labor in which working conditions and hours do not limit school and free time. Basic education must be guaranteed because to keep girls and boys out of work, the efforts are destined to fail if they are not linked to the creation of educational opportunities. It is necessary to provide adequate economic support to the families with projects that guarantee paid jobs for adults.
This is most likely that children have been employed in work since ancient times. In the past, historians and the brightest work refer to child labor in the agricultural and pastoral world. Since the Second Industrial Revolution, child labor has a dramatic aspect. Children were locked up in factories for entire days, using big and dangerous machines, employing toxic and chemical materials, subject to all types of abuse. In addition, these factories would have unsustainable working hours with serious damage for the children's health, no matter how old they were. Two of the major writers of the 19th century have dealt with the themes of the child labor in their works: the English writer Charles Dickens and the Italian writers Giovanni Verga.
Twist. Charles Dickens depicts the dramatic situation of a young orphan who, after having spent many years in an orphanage, between sufferings and abuses, at the age of 9 is sent to work at a coffin manufacturer, who mistreats and beats him. After a while, Oliver is exasperated and decides to run away to look for fortune in town. Here he is recruited, along with other boys, in a gang of petty thieves whose leader is an old Jew. After several incidents, including an arrest for theft, Oliver is forced to be part of another gang and is then injured. In the end, Oliver is taken off the streets and adopted by a rich gentleman. The novel is full of autobiographical references of the author.
Giovanni Verga's novel, Rosso Malpelo, talks about the sad story of a Sicilian boy victim of the prejudices of the countrymen because of the red color of his hair. The boy, called Rosso Malpelo by all the town people, works with his father in a quarry where he is mistreated by everyone except by his father, who is the only one that really loves him. However, one day, his father, who has accepted a risky and unpaid job, dies in a mine due to a collapse. From that moment on, Malpelo becomes increasingly cynical and evil to the eyes of the others. His mother and sister are unable to give him affection, and they only care for him because of the money that he brings home. Malpelo then becomes attached in his own way to a weak and sickly boy who works at a quarry, but not very long after Frog dies of tuberculosis. One day, Malpelo is asked to explore an unknown tunnel of the mine. The boy, knowing that no one would be worried for him, accepts and goes into the mine to never come back.